So Al, you want to introduce our guest, our first ever guest interview and talk?
Exactly.
We're so excited because we're like real professionals.
It is. Ted, is a delight to have you here, everybody. This is Ted Sikora, who is a longtime comic book creator, movie creator, head of Hero Tomorrow Enterprises. I'm not sure if I have exactly the word, but has done all kinds of things that I have first stumbled onto at a Comic-Con and then began to actively follow because I love the quality of the work. And welcome to Relentless Geekery. Steve and I have been doing this for about a half a year now, probably, I don't know, three going on 4 dozen episodes.
Yeah.
And indeed, you are our first guest. So I've been waiting to say this. Welcome to our TED Talk.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Why in the world would anybody still buying a steam-powered Windows computer as compared to a nice, sleek M1 Mac?
Because steam-powered is way cooler.
No, I'm with Alan all the way. All right. Do you want to restart, or do you want to just pick up from where I was about to introduce?
Oh,
actually,
why
don't we can restart if this is a better level now. I really do
Yeah,
have
you're
my
good.
mic jacked
It's a
up,
much
and
better
like
level
I said,
for
now I'm having to hulk over too much. Let's see if I'm going to have to. Is that me? So there. Now my head is more centered, as well as my mouth being on the mic. There. So here, let's restart as you suggested. Welcome to Relentless Geekery, and welcome to our very first guest, Ted Sikora, who is a comic book and movie creator, head of Hero Tomorrow. As one of the first people that I knew that has done wonderful Kickstarter projects that have proven to be I guess, instrumental in getting his work out. I first stumbled onto Ted at a Comic-Con where his work was displayed. I loved it. I thought it was very early Marvel-esque, and because I'm a big-time comic book collector, I was happy to start talking with him. And instead of getting the big brush off, because I was a swooning fanboy, we actually had a wonderful conversation. And now every time that we get a chance to visit, it's what's his latest. So here I am, proudly in my Tap Dance Killer t-shirt, because I've become one of those cool Kickstarter patrons, or
because Al's way cooler than I am.
But I not to go on too long, but I really loved from the start the tone of the books, the quality of the dialogue, the fact that they were set here in Cleveland and with like recognizable locations. I've been to that corner, that theater, that coffee shop, and just it was a delight to be in support of you, and then to see your star on the rise has been, well, in my own tiny little way, I guess I've helped. You know what I mean? I have, since the very first time I saw your work, I regularly have talked you up to my friends who are also comic book interested and say, don't leave this one off your radar. It's so well done, and it's such a passion project. If you like comic books, the best thing about comic books, he's really captured so much of. Not only, hey, I buy 100 comic books a month, I look forward to the next issue instead of it being, oh boy, here's another another series that's giving it a try. So having said that, like I said, gushing, welcome to our TED Talk thing. Maybe Ted, you'd like to correct anything that I got wrong, and tell us all about how happy you are to be doing what you're doing.
Oh my gosh!
Well, there's no leading question there.
That's great. Hey, thank you so much, guys, for having me on the show today. And yeah, Alan, really, to you and to anyone who you have turned on to, I'm so grateful to have your support. Yeah, I mean, you picked up on things that I hope we are accomplishing. That we're trying to do comics in a modern way, in a new setting, but with a nod to the classics that we grew up loving so much, and trying to almost take like the Bronze Age of comics and evolve them in a different direction than the way things did evolve. So we kept the big captions on the cover and all the hype, and these kind of
exactly
larger than life arcs that you really can't get from Marvel or DC anymore. And it's not anybody's fault. It's just the fact that it's very hard to create an impactful Batman or Spider-Man story anymore. There's just so much, no matter what.
70 years of mythology to be beholden to. Yeah.
And when you start with a brand new universe and there's no superheroes when it starts, every villain is introduced, and it's like, wow, we've just increased the villain population by 50%, so yeah, I mean, some of the reviews have really liked that. They've called that out, that it's just refreshing to be in a universe where you can be on board from the top, and it's
Yes.
obviously told with a passion for what Lee, Kirby, and Ditko, Romita, what they created. And as far as
And that's exactly what I loved. I mean, no, go ahead, Ted. Sorry.
please go ahead. You go.
I was going to say that I think we got a little bit of a lag. We'll have to work with that, but that's what I really loved. I mean, I met you at one of the Wizard Worlds and just said, "Oh, local guy. Okay, I'll check it out. Why not?" And I got it, and it sat for a while. I'm like, okay, I helped him out. And then I started reading it, and I'm reading it going, wait a second, is this a reprint from something I missed back in the 70s? I'm like, oh my God, this is just like, I'm like, this is great. And then, you get the different characters and villains, and I'm laughing because, they're not like these super powered. It's like some guy pulled a suit out of his garbage can and put it on to be a superhero. And I'm not saying that in a derogatory way. It's that it's not the spandex. It's not the shiny. It was more normal average guy feel, but they get something weird that happens to them. And and in fact, I didn't Ilya say this smells like a rotten suit or something like that when he first got it. And
found it in a cave.
It was always a quandary in Spider-Man, like, how does he wash his costume without having Aunt May find out about it?
Right.
It's just that you can't wear a superhero costume on patrol for 10 days in a row without getting a little ripeness to it.
And I kept reading it and going, I need more.
Oh, I'm grateful. Well,
one of the things that I noticed early on.
What I was going to say is, what I loved about Marvel as opposed to DC is that the person behind the mask is so much more important, and at least in my opinion, I was a Peter Parker guy. I growing up, I felt that character.
Right.
He related to me, and I related to him. And, it was just sort of, there was a magic there that I never felt with Clark Kent or Bruce Wayne. And I would pick up Superman or Batman for 10 issue runs, and I was like, I'm just going to stick with my Marvel people, And I guess when it came to creating Ilya, my father used to have a tire store in Akron, and many summers or after schools, weekends, I'd be down there changing tires. I was 13 years old changing tires with these guys. And I just never felt like those kind of dudes were ever represented as sort of an alter ego. And so we made Ilya just sort of this, blue collar is almost an upgrade for what he drives an ice cream truck, and he really just any
Right.
little side job to get by kind of guy. And I think it's really just kind of taking what Stan and Steve did with Peter Parker and trying to make him even more relatable. And, like if Peter Parker shows up in a at a party, he's the most brilliant person there. Ilya is probably the dumbest.
So you said you liked Spider-Man. What are some of your favorite Spider-Man stories? Because we talk about comics and stuff like that every day.
Oh gosh, I have Amazing Spider-Man from issue 141 on. I've stopped a couple times for short runs where there was an episode, it was 6 or 7 years ago. He was driving around in a spider submarine, and I'm like, this sucks. I'm done, I gave it up for like just a couple years, and then I came back in. I thought Superior Spider-Man was terrific, but I'm about to drop it again. I think it's
Sometimes
horrible.
You have to wait for.
Yeah, it's gotten so bad. This thing they did with
the various different writers and artists.
The thing they did with this new villain. Go ahead.
No, one of the things being a longtime comic book reader is you really sometimes have to like outweight that, the editorial staff has said, okay, we're going to give this writer, this artist a run on the book, and maybe in 2 or 3 issues you can go, wow, Frank Robbins artwork not that great, I don't know how long I'm going to be able to stay with this. And same with certain writers, especially when they follow a good one where it just seems so leaden, so like off tone compared to the things you came to love about the book. And I don't know that I ever stopped collecting until finally stopped forever. But it was, boy, did I go through some things that were like, this is a matter of my stubbornness and my passion to like read everything, as opposed to if I had to decide where I'm going to spend my money, a third of the books that Marvel and DC and so forth over the course of time put out. I was like, man, I got to wait for you guys to go through a renaissance, because you really have lost. What's the, I don't know, if Marvel is based on certain classics, there's the Jekyll Hyde thing, there's the Prince and the Pauper thing. When they lose track of that and introduce the Spider Submarine, it's like there's so many examples of jump the shark type moments where, and in some cases where they did a lot of work to retcon the bad stuff back out of existence, or they just like reboot the entire universe because you were tired of having too many funny talking animals, interacting with the realism of what was going on. And so it I get what you're saying, and in fact maybe that is when you're, if I'm not sure exactly when you started, but if it was in a fallow period for the industry where it just was a lot of things seemed to have become repetitive or they'd lost the magic, and then you read something that's like, wow, this is like early Spider-Man, like early Nova, where they really seem to capture, this is what it would be like to have a regular Joe get superpowers. They'd have to learn how to use them. They'd have to explain disappearances. They'd have to, how am I going to keep a girlfriend if I have to like bug off in the middle of a date every once in a while? And it was very interesting to see the mix of realism and heroism, and that it wouldn't be easy. You'd have to have that big heroic instinct that drove you, because otherwise it'd be so easy to just say, this is uh, a burden I am unwilling to bear. This is something that I just can't do. It's wrecking my life, not while making the world a better place. It's wrecking mine. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. So
Um, yeah, I started 141. It was really, and I've gone back and I've got a lot of the issues between 100 and 150. My favorite run, gosh, and I've read them all. I have all the omnibuses or whatever to go back. I I loved some Marvel team up stuff as well. Like when I think of my favorite Spider-Man story, there's a Marvel team up with the Man Thing where they fight Despair. That issue, it's like issue 72 or something. It just strikes me as such a great heroic story because Spidey's beaten down so bad, but the way he comes back in that one, it just when I think of it, that's the story that pops in my head. Mysterio was always my favorite villain. He was the villain in issue
I
141.
saw him on your shelf behind you. Exactly.
Oh yeah, I got the Bowens there.
I saw.
Yeah, that's
There you go. Exactly.
right. Yeah. So, and I have the Electro as well because I just love that old costume too. Um, Nothing can stop the Juggernaut. I loved Carrion. I thought he was such a great villain and
Mm.
should have been a top 10 rogues gallery, but they screwed him up so bad. In fact, if I ever had the chance to write Spider-Man, I would do something with Carrion, and he would be the most badass character in his whole rogues.
Well,
Um,
that's an idea, Ted. You should make your own comic book and make a character very similar. That's an idea, something for the future.
maybe. And let's see.
One,
Moon Knight
one
was another character I loved. Oh my God, the first run of Moon Knight with Bill Sienkiewicz and Doug Mensch. Oh, that is, mwah.
Yeah. I remember him being in the back of the Incredible Hulk magazine, right? The Savage Hulk or whatever it was. That was the first time that he appeared. And I was just like, how how did they come up with something so great, but then relegated to this? Maybe they weren't sure. In some cases it is, okay, that's a pretty interesting idea, but mental illness, multiple personality disorder, as it's not an easy sell. You can't splash that on the cover. Hey, which of his four personalities will fight crime today? It's not an easy, but it was from the start so much deeper and like that, and sometimes it not only is he mentally ill, but some of his villains, you can tell they're really not connected with reality, but they're passionate about what their worldview is. And so to see the depths to which, sometimes when you have your supervillain that's just, I'm a megalomaniac, kind of a cackling guy, I'm going to try to get as much money as possible. And then sometimes you have the ones that just want to see the world burn, that really are like crazy destructive or whatever it might be. It was very interesting to see both the heroes and the villains having similar problems with not connecting with reality. You know what I mean? And like you said, Doug Mensch, however he could put himself into that frame of mind or of unmind, it's really wonderful. One of the reasons I recommend, for instance, Doom Patrol, and especially now I just got a chance to get into the Doom Patrol series, was Grant Morrison with Crazy Jane had such insight or sympathy, or you know what I mean. They really have brought things in where it's there's such, I don't know what to call it. I don't know that I've ever understood that kind of mental illness and the burden of it, and both the power and the helplessness of it. Anyway, I know we're going off field, but I agree with Moon Knight and the fact that that's becoming a series now, and that they're going to explore that maybe where they get a chance to. It's a niche production instead of having to be a big screen movie. I hope that they bring out some of the best aspects of he's he's kind of a nut, and yet his heart is in the right place when he's in the right mind. And what are they going to do with all that? And he has a great cast of subsidiary characters, Frenchie, and anyway, there's a whole bunch of good stuff that can come from that. Kind of the anti-Batman aspect, he's rich enough to have gadgets, but that you don't know that he doesn't have a code against killing. You know what I mean? So is he going to keep ratcheting up his armaments? That he's going to, like, wow, this whole neighborhood is corrupt. I think I'll just blow it up. Or like, I don't know,
Like
like,
WandaVision.
yeah, or honestly, like Cleveland. When I first got to Cleveland and I found out that Elliot Ness came here after the Untouchables and did the whole, like, get rid of the shanty town with malice aforethought, I didn't know that part of Elliot Ness, like Mr. Goody, untouchable type stuff. He, again, we tend to do this. We tend to jump around,
Ramble a bit.
pre-associate our relentless geekery, but because it's, if there's going to be things that I as I go my new home, it's very interesting to find out, wow, there's history here that never penetrated to Chicago. And so I have had um, a chance to inject that into my consciousness. That sometimes your heroes have feet of clay. That's a comic book trope pretty often. So anyway.
So
Love it.
so Ted, okay, real quick, my favorite, I don't know if you've read this, it's newer Spider-Man, Renew Your Vows, where it takes place in Battle Worlds. It's like all after everything changes, and Peter's like the last hero that they never caught. um I was telling Alan about that one. It's one of my favorite Spider-Mans because he's got his daughter Annie and he's married to Mary Jane, and Venom gets out and he's threatening Annie, and Peter loses it and just starts wailing on him to get him away from his family. And for me it was super powerful story because they get to this abandoned building and Peter's trying to figure out what to do. Mary Jane shows up and basically yells at him, hey, the building is completely empty. And like the scene, Spider-Man just turns and looks at Venom, and you could just tell from the art that, oh, he's about to unleash some shit. And he just totally goes wild on Venom, like breaks his arm and hand beating on the guy. And it was just so powerful because it's like all that pent up rage that Peter has had for years. That's probably my favorite Spider-Man of recent years.
That was good. I did read that. Yeah.
I love that one. So let me ask, your newest book is Bloom, and she first appeared in the Tap Dance Killer series. I haven't caught up with all of it yet.
It was actually in Apama #5, and yeah, she is and we did that on purpose again because, like, in Fantastic Four #5, they introduced Doctor Doom, so we were like, all right, issue 5, this is where we bring in the big nemesis of the whole arc. So yeah, she's been in the shadows or in the foreground throughout that series, and she's been a bit of a mystery, and Apama starts kind of being, he feels like he's being pulled into the forest, and he meets Regina and this whole cult, and they've been waiting for him for a long time. And he comes upon, before he meets them, he comes upon this area of trees where there's these burlap little sacks with the Pama face, kind of painted onto the sack. And he's like, what is this? He opens it up, and it's all these heads of animals and humans, and it's like this weird calling for him. So then when he meets Regina, and he just can't do anything against her, because she's been waiting for him and she even, one of the lines in Apama 5 is, I missed Woodstock because of you. And he's like, what the fuck are you talking about? And so this is Bloom is going back to 1969, and we're seeing exactly what happened to make this. So all right, if I was, we're seeing her origin, and to set up the origin, Bloom is about a guy who is trying to create a comic book in 1969, and he has an idea for a villain. He was tripping in the woods on acid, and he's an artist, and he was seeing all these symbols floating around him, and he starts sketching them all out, and he's like, oh, this is great, but he was feeling, at the time he was working on his superhero character, and these symbols made him forget something about it. And so he always thought that these symbols feel like the anti of my hero, so they're going to be the villain. And so he buys a mannequin. He's painting these symbols on the mannequin. His fiance is like, what are you doing? This is evil looking. And he's like, yeah, but this isn't the Donna Reed show, So basically he goes to a street fair, and the Hessler Street Fair in Cleveland, and which I found out actually did take place in 1969 for the first time. So I was like, oh my God, that's perfect. So
That's awesome.
he meets this dancer, Regina, and he's like, you'd be a really neat inspiration for my villain. And she laughs and says, all right, let's do it, man, whatever. They go out into the woods. He paints the symbols onto her body, and then she starts to break on through to the other side. And it's this story of the two of them in the woods, as Ramsey, the comic book artist, this devout atheist, versus Regina, who believes everything, and they are having a real go at it in the woods. And it's I'm happy to say it's been getting really good reviews so far, and our campaign's doing pretty well. We just crossed $8,000, so we're well over our goal. It ends on the 28th.
Wonderful.
Nice. And oh, you got something, Al? Go ahead. I got a question after you.
Yes, one of the things that I was going to say is that my experience of your books is often that they're very cinematographic. In other words, that it shows that you have also been involved in video production, or that how you frame things, how you move from shot to shot. It's not quite storyboarding where you're making the movie, but it definitely informs like how you draw focus, how you do move through a sequence of things. And that's Bloom, because it's got that psychedelic aspect to it. It's going to be very interesting to see. This can't be done with just people putting on a costume and having a fight in a parking lot. There's going to have to be interesting special effects and like Doctor Strange level stuff. So do you have all that kind of in your head, how you want it to look like? It shows in the artwork. Are you informing your artist how you want it to look, or is it more Marvel style where you say, hey, draw something otherworldly here?
Well, Butch Mappa, who is the artist on the series, he actually beat out 200 other artists that submitted to this. So what I really loved about his work, before we talk about the psychedelic and the wild, was the human quality. That it was so much about these two characters, and I needed to see two characters that, just looking at them, I felt for them, both of them. Regina can't be this overly sexualized, vampy woman, and Ramsey needs to look like a guy that you feel like he's one of your buds. So when I had these people, I had a lot of artists do tryouts and things, and he kept rising to the top. And so regarding the way we approach scenes and things, and the film, yeah, I mean, when I made the movie Hero Tomorrow, one of the things I did was, I directed it. I co-wrote it with Milo Miller. We both produced it. When I made it, we made it. It was a lot of people involved.
Mhm.
I storyboarded the entire film, 1,500 images, and it really, because I hadn't made a feature film or anything like that before, that's where I learned kind of this thing that was maybe in my subconscious from reading comics all my life about this visual, sequential storytelling. And I do find it translates quite a
Mhm.
bit. And so sometimes, usually the way we work is I will write a scripted page, I give it to the artist, and they give me a really rough layout, and I will then put that right into Illustrator. I'll put all my captions in and see if it's working, if it's flowing. And about half the time, I will make layout revisions and make sure that things are flowing in a certain direction. We're not crossing the action line. A lot of cinematography things that I think a lot of comic artists aren't necessarily familiar with, but I do find if we apply them to the comics, it just makes for a seamless transition. Because ultimately, I just want the reader to not even be thinking about how we made it and just being immersed in the story.
Yes.
Um, so then, getting into the psychedelic effects and that kind of thing, we build it together as we go, but I'm always careful to, I never want any of our stuff to be something that the reader is like, oh, what the hell was that? I don't even know what happened on that page. That's a big pet peeve of mine when a moment happens in a comic and I'm like, man, they didn't even try here to you can tell that was like the first attempt at a layout and they just said we're running out of time or something. And so the thing we have on the independent side is that advantage of time. We don't have to get these out every month and we can just do them until they're right. And if we're not going to put
Mhm.
every ounce of quality we can into it, then there's no point in doing it.
And it, like Alan said earlier, it definitely shows. It's when I bought the first one, I got soft cover, and I had to go back and get hardcover. So now that's why I got the hardcover of Tap Dance Killer, and these are special. I need these on my shelf. So that definitely shows in what you're doing.
Mhm.
Appreciate
Um,
it.
a quick question. Yeah. So you've got offshoots of Apama with the Tap Dance Killer and Bloom and Punchline.
Mhm.
When you created these offshoots, were you thinking of that originally? Like, oh, I want this character to come in on the 6th issue and be an offshoot story of its own, or did it evolve after you wrote them and said, "Hey, I really like this. I got other ideas."
The analogy I like to use is the way I look at writing this is we are on a road trip, driving across the country and we're not taking any highways. I know where we're headed, but if we see something interesting along the way, we are going to stop and explore. We're going to check into the motel. We're going to try the diner everybody recommends. So like this, Tap Dance
Yes.
Killer was not really on the radar of the big thing that was happening between Apama and Regina. What happened is I do film work as well, and I was doing this documentary for Near West Theater, and it was coincidentally, Ilya lives at West 65th and Detroit Avenue. Near West Theater was building their new
Right. Right.
location at
Gordon
six.
Square.
Yeah, Gordon Square, 2 blocks, 1 block away, 67th in Detroit. And I said, hey, what if Ilya's? I tell this to Milo. What if Ilya's at the coffee shop and some cute gal comes in and she's got flyers for the musical and she's like, hey, we're auditioning, it's community theater thing, you want to come down? And Ilya's like, I'm tired of getting my ass kicked as a superhero, and why not do something fun? And so, and plus I might get a chance of picking up her digits, and so he goes to this audition, and we just ran with this idea completely out of order from what we were wanting to tell. And for me, Apama 10 and 11, this two-parter is one of the things I'm most proud of in my entire career. I just love it. And so here we are. I'm showing this book off at like New York Comic Con, really where it was very palpable.
Mhm.
Um, People were coming up and going, "Who is this character? Who is this Tap Dance Killer? What's this about?" And I would tell her, "Oh, that's Nikki St. Clair. She's a mega talented actor. She gets cast in a horror show musical, then gets permanently locked into the role and starts trying to wipe out the mafia." and they were buying the prints of her. Images of her were being liked and shared on Facebook by the thousands, which was not happening with Apama, no matter how much we tried. So I'm like, all right, well, why don't we give Tap Dance Killer a try here? And then in Tap Dance Killer, I had the opportunity to introduce a character who was intended to be an Apama villain, Punchline. I always like the idea of this heavyweight boxer who becomes a superpowered murderous clown named Punchline, you know? And 2 years before DC, ours debuted, by the way. So anyway, when Tap Dance Killer had its first 5-issue arc, I thought, man, this is a Punchline really wasn't challenged all that much in that first series. And I thought this is a great opportunity now to continue the story of these vaudevillains, and let Punchline take the lead. And, Nikki will still be in it, but now more in a supporting role.
I love that.
I love that story, and from what I've read of Marvel history, again, I'm happily drawing the parallels. They had any number of times where what they thought was a one-shot, kind of a throwaway character, just caught the public's imagination. That wonderful lightning in a bottle. And so, since we mentioned earlier Moon Knight, he first appeared in Werewolf by Night, and sales skyrocketed. Big buzz started, and they're like, "Well, are we going to let this go? Are we going to run with this? Are we going to do something with this?" And it it's very cool that you had that experience of doing something like, hey, me and my bud Milo were talking, let's try this. And then it's a little bit weird to say, well, my baby is being overshadowed here, but it's very cool to have the whole world say, wow, don't pay attention. You know what I mean? This character is writing itself. We want to see more of her. You really have captured something here, and
Yeah.
capitalizing on that is a wonderful thing. Okay.
And it's funny you say that, Alan, because I mean, that's exactly what Spider-Man was. Oh yeah, throw that spider character into the last episode of this amazing fantasy. He won't do anything good.
Canceling this book anyway.
Yeah.
It really was that he was supposed to be like an ash can edition almost.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
whatever, put him in.
They said that also about James.
So,
Stan Lee said that
about who?
Stan Lee said that about J. Jonah Jameson. Like, he was just sort of a toss-off character in one of those first issues, and then you're just writing stories, and you're like, you know what? I think I'll come back to that guy again.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And I forget the actor's name, the guy who plays him in the movies. He's so perfect. I mean, he is that character.
J.K. Simmons.
Yeah, J.K. Simmons.
Exactly.
He's excellent. Let me ask you. So, you've pretty much used Kickstarter for all of this, have you not?
We did. Well, we did it a little strange in that we first we were just, when we made the movie, we thought, wouldn't it be fun to do the issue number 1 of the book that was in our character's head, Apama. So we just did that digitally, put it on the website, and it was getting really nice reviews, and we had so much fun making that comic. We thought, well, we weren't even thinking of selling it. Then we did a second issue, put that on the website. And the thing is, we were finding is we were getting lots of reads on it. People were writing nice reviews, but we weren't selling any more movies of Hero Tomorrow. So we thought, well, then Comixology happened, and we started selling them on Comixology.
Okay.
And when we got to issue 5, which was that first Regina story, we decided to do a Kickstarter and go into print for the first time. And we were just terrified of doing anything in print. It just seemed like such a world that was foreign and alien to us. But we raised about 14,000 on that first Kickstarter, and then we decided to just hold back all the single issues and just do a volume 2, which was issues 6 through 11 of Apama volume 2. And then when Tap Dance Killer was debuted and I decided to do single issue, or I decided to give her own series, I didn't want to wait. Now the thing I forgot to mention was Diamond picked up the Apama Volume 1 trade, and we were very fortunate to get in with them. And they gave us a staff pick. They really liked it. They wrote a staff pick review of it. Volume 2, the same thing. They gave us a staff pick review.
Yeah.
And so we're one of the few like creator-owned companies that has like one single shared universe in Diamond. There's not a lot of that, and we're thrilled to be part of them. So with Tap Dance Killer, I was like, man, I don't want to wait till I have 5 issues and do a trade through Diamond. I said, why don't we try single issues for the first time? And then it was at that point we thought, Apama never had his single issues, and it always just came out as a trade, which was, we did things completely backwards. We did a movie before we did a comic, and then we did the trade before we did the
Right.
single issues. But I think the single issues benefited from that because we were able to go back and remaster things. We changed some things, cut some things out, or tweak the dialogue. So, when people ask me what's the first appearance of Apama, it's a complicated answer, because people collect single issues, and the Apama now exists in issues 1 through 11 with main and variant covers. And Apama 12, when that comes out, that will be a single issue first. And I think that will unite the whole single issue thing as being, these really are the first print single issues of that series, and the collectability of them. In my opinion, people just don't collect trades as they don't get them graded, that kind of thing. So I think, a couple years from now, or even now, do people really regard that our trade came out before the singles? Probably not.
I think of that is true. In other words, that the path you took to get it all to come out is a little bit the reverse. But anybody arriving now to the scene, they're going to follow what they think is the traditional thing of, I'm going to get number one, and I'm going to get number 1 through 12. I'm going to read them all if I like it, and then if I want to have a reading copy because I don't want to wear down my sealed in
Right.
CGC armor type copy, then I'll get the trade and all that kind of stuff. So it is very interesting to have people arriving now, then instead of trying the first things and getting individual issues, that there's whatever the binge watching thing is that people have nowadays about TV. There's a certain amount of that in people that they kind of don't want to buy into something if they think, well, listen, independent, will it keep going? Am I going to be left hanging? There's any
Right.
number of independents, as you know, that said, issue number 1 of 6, and they made it to 3, and then they disappeared. And so for anybody that kind of likes closure, there's all kinds of comic book interruptus that has happened to people. And so the fact that you have things in the can, and so I guess to get to a question, while you're working now on Bloom, do you already have a certain number of issues kind of already done and you'll be releasing them over the course of time? Or is there still a kind of an ongoing, hey, we should probably get an issue out? It's next month, next quarter, whatever else it might be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a great question. Bloom was originally, it was in the ill-fated April 2020 preview guide. And, it was right before the shutdown. That I don't even know if that preview guide got distributed at all. And Diamond, my rep, said, hey, this is not looking good for a launch. Do you want to see if I can pull this? And I said, please, yes, thank you, God. And so our relationship with Diamond is great. The thing about it is we don't make enough with Diamond sales to pay for these comics, to make them, the printing, the art, all that stuff. So even waiting without conventions, I'm just going to lose money on every book. So that wasn't really an option. And then we had never done a Kickstarter for a single issue before. That's when I decided to do Punchline number 1 as a single and see how that went, how it was received. And it did great. It did close to 12 or 13,000. And I just thought, all right, this is really viable. And then I talked to some of my retailer friends and I said, hey, how would you feel if when this Bloom series is released, I'm also running a Kickstarter at the same time to make up for lost convention income? Like, I didn't want the retailers to be like, hey, I thought this was an exclusive Diamond thing and you're selling it on the side. I'm like, no.
Right.
They were all really cool about it. They're like, no, you got to do what you got to do to survive. And so, and I'm sure, look, our highest backer count on Kickstarter was Punchline. It had like 302 backers. So with 2,000 shops, that's not really going to be a big chunk of whatever they were going to sell. And I think it's largely not the same audience. So here we are. And, we've already raised enough to pay for the print run through the Kickstarter campaign. And that means the diamond sales will be, you know, in the black. So that's new for us.
It, real quick, Alan, comic interrupt this. You can take medicine for that. So I know you're getting older if you need it. Um, Ted, I love you talking about that because, as Alan knows, I've been working on writing some novels and some middle grade fiction books, and it's been an adventure and a journey. We chat about it every now and then. But being in the author community, the indie publishing community, there's still a big mindset that, oh, you have to go and do this and then do this and then do this. But you're kind of proof you don't necessarily have to, whether it's comic books or novels. You can do what works best for you at that time, and you're not beholden to others. And me personally, that's one of the things I love about what you've done with Apama and Tap Dance Killer and Bloom and everything.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, I think it also comes from, you know, knowing what it takes to make a movie, you know, and how difficult that was or is as you know. I just feel like, man, with comics, whatever you dream up goes right on the page. You're not trying to, you know, find the budget for a location. You know, in Apama, we go to the moon, we do anything, and I just it's so liberating. So yeah, I have to hire an artist, and you know, we have to produce the books, but compared to making a film, I just think this is the greatest thing ever. So yeah, and you know, if writing a novel or whatever, you're in control of your destiny, you know, and the further you can do, I think, get, you know, on your own before you have to bring other people in, you know, the better off you'll be in many cases.
Okay. So one of the things I love talking with artists about how they do it. You're with Bloom. You're going back in time to like the late '60s, as you said. I missed Woodstock for this. You used earlier, you know, break on through to the other side. Are you putting yourself in that kind of '60s frame of mind? I don't know that you're taking LSD, but are you listening to the right music? Are you, you know,
Yes,
how
that's
are you
important.
capturing that? How are you internalizing that and then reflecting it back out? You know, can you walk us through a little bit of I got a blank page and here's how I do Bloom.
Oh, this is yeah, this gets weird and meta crazy. I When I was making Regina for the Apama series, I knew I wanted a so you guys, I don't know if you've ever heard of Helltown, but when I was growing up, there was this area near Peninsula that they would in Boston Mills, where they referred to this sort of cult activity that was going on in the late '70s, and it turned out there was an area in the park that was overtaken by the government for the park system, but it used to be houses. So you'd be walking through the woods and you'd come upon these abandoned houses. So it became this
Abandoned
area,
houses, exactly.
yeah, it became this area where people would just party and who knows what all, but it was referred to as Helltown. And I thought, man, this is a Northeast Ohio story. Let's have the Helltown cult. You know, I just wanted that. And who's the leader of the Helltown cult? Well, I know I wanted a female because we had already done you know, we have a guy hero, a guy villain was our first one. I thought, I want a female. I want her to, and I was on a video shoot. I remember somebody, we were shooting somebody and they had tattoos all over them and they were explaining the power they were getting from each tattoo, which was something that I never had really thought about with tattoos. I thought of them as more graphic, and that just really, that then the bulb went off, you know, and I was like, okay. So I started drawing this out in 2 dimensions, and I just couldn't get the vibe of what I wanted. You know, I did a lot of revisions and iterations, and then I thought, you know what? If I get a mannequin, I will be able to see this in 3D space. And then I can give that to Benito Gallego, the artist, and I'll just photograph it from all angles. And we can keep these symbols on her body very, you know, consistent. So I do that. I take that step. Subsequently, somewhere along that timeline, I'm shooting an event at Cleveland Public Theater. And I meet somebody in the crowd who's this dancer, and she's got the right look for Regina. I mean, it's like, wow, this could be. I wonder if I could get this person to do a photo shoot with me. So, I mean, this is very similar to the whole thing I just described about what Bloom is, right? And so we make a
Is
plan
it
to,
exactly that?
we make a plan to go into the woods and shoot some photos, but I I've never done anything like that, and I'm just, and our schedules are not aligning. So months are going by, and then who knows, 2 months, 3 months later, I'm just like, oh my God, what if I got her into the woods and we're doing this photo shoot? I don't know anything about this person. What if she really is this weird, like once she gets the symbols on her and there is something magic in the symbols. And then it was like, oh my God. And I wrote a screenplay. I wrote this whole thing out, the origin of Regina, as a screenplay. And it was Milo who gave me the title. When he read it, he said, because I was calling it, the Muse, or, Villainess and all this. But he said, what about Bloom? And I was like, oh my God, I love that title. So um, then I so I wrote this whole screenplay. And then what was the funny part is Soma, the woman who was going to, pose for me. Because at that point, I really didn't want to do the photo shoot anymore, because I would have had to tell her all this stuff that had come of it. But she said, hey, I'm ready to do that photo shoot. Do you think we can get our schedules together? And I'm like, oh boy. So I decided to come clean. I don't know her, I'm like, look, that photo shoot that we didn't have actually happened in fiction, and it's really effed up. And
In my mind, exactly.
yeah, I think I'm going to have to, in in good conscience, I have to share this with you before we do this. And hopefully you're not going to think I'm some weirdo psycho nut. So she read it and was a real she was a kindred spirit about the whole thing. And I always refer to her, she is Regina's godmother. But we actually did go out and do this photo shoot after, and I've used those photos many times for references for how Regina should move and all. So yeah, I mean, to say this story is personal, and there's things that the main guy is based on a lot of stuff with my dad. He's a mechanic, and he's his story resembles a lot of my father's story in the 60s, where my dad was a very talented artist, but when he got out of Cooper School of Art in Cleveland, he had an offer to either make $50 a week for the Plain Dealer doing art illustrations, or $100 a week doing auto work. He took the auto path, and he never really did much with his art after that, other than teaching me things along the way. And so this is, you hear this conversation in Bloom, and it's very much there's things with my grandma in it, and the whole thing about the spirituality of it. I mean, Regina, what's funny too is when people draw her, they'll sometimes give her this sort of real nasty villain vibe, this evil dark energy coming out of her hands. I'm like, that's not Regina. She is Regina's a prophet, and the mainstream will not agree with her message, but this is not someone who wants to just burn it all down. She's not looking for money. We tried to her Regina's thing is, we tried to change the world peacefully in the 60s, and it didn't stick, and now we're going to do it on my terms.
Wonderful.
So let me ask what Alan mentioned. What are some of your favorite music artists and albums? We talk a lot about music. We tend to go off way too long. So what do you like to listen to?
Man, I'm music's been a huge part of my life. Like I was in rock bands. I did musical theater. I wrote 2 musicals. So I mean, I've gone the gamut. When I was first into guitar, I was into Kiss and Van Halen. Like, people in high school called me Teddy Van Halen, because I was always playing guitar. But then I really got into the swing stuff. Sarah Vaughan changed my life. Sam Cooke, not that he's swing, but his swing stuff is amazing. Frank Sinatra. I went through that whole thing, and then I got into musicals and Stephen Sondheim. But the Doors, my God, when I think about Regina, even in A Palm of Five, she's singing "Take It As It Comes" while she's carving the symbol onto his chest. If you look back at that page, she's singing
Right.
"Take It Easy, Baby, Take It As It Comes," and I just love the idea of the whole cult just singing these rock songs from the 60s like they're church hymns, and so whenever I'm working on Bloom, I've got Dylan or Hendrix, or I've got this long playlist of 60s stuff that I pull out for that. And yeah, I mean, any recommendations? I'm all ears. You know what? A quick side note to that is when we did our first photo cover, and the woman who posed as Regina, Alicia Lynn, she came in from Pittsburgh. I met her at the Steel City Con, and she just immediately, when I met her, she was cosplaying right across from me as a character from this Heroinberg series. But I just, as soon as I spoke to her, I'm like, oh my God, you have such a Regina vibe. And I showed her Regina, and she was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. And I said, well, she's, tell me more about the character. Well, she sings, she dances in a band, she sings backup. She goes, I dance in a band and sing backup. I'm like, oh, this is crazy. It's just like Josie, who cosplays Tap Dance Killer, who is also an actor, just like Nikki St. Clair. I'm going all over the place here, but so anyway, we did this photo shoot. She came to my studio about 3 weeks ago, and it was just all Doors. We listened to the Doors, probably every album while we were doing the photo shoot.
That's funny. I really love the things you just shared about like that it's all metafiction. You see movies like Being John Malkovich where the line between who I am and what I'm putting into my work, and then after a while maybe you don't keep a clear demarcation between that, and that's both wonderful and hazardous. And it sounds like there's an and that when coincidences happen in your life, you're like, I could kind of use this, and I don't think it's cheating. The fact that the universe said, "Hey, here's an idea for you," and it just kind of like plopped it in your lap. It's wonderful that you're meeting people that have the sympathetic vibe, and that I don't know. So you mentioned what music. Like I would, how about Spirit? If you ever heard 12 Dreams of Dr. Sardonicus, there's a whole bunch of good old Spirit that would be good for that 60s vibe. Maybe the first like Blue Cheer or some of the earliest of Steppenwolf, like heavy metal thunder. I mean, I'm trying to think of what would be anything having to do with Woodstock, as you mentioned, Hendrix and Crosby, Stills and Nash.
Yeah.
When they were so beautiful, and then they had the harsh
Yeah.
lyrics amongst the beauty. It's like, wow, I'm
Mhm.
singing along, but they're talking about people getting old, and there's I don't know that the '60s, and I know I'm jumping around as you just said, kind of all over the place. One of the things that would be interesting about your book is when you talk about, hey, they go to Helltown, they're chanting rock and roll as if it's satanic rituals. Well, isn't that the thing that all the people warning about rock and roll were always saying? that they're going to go there, lose their soul to Satan. You know what I mean? All the backwards masking on albums and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then you put out a comic book that says, yeah, that kind of was. That would freak people out.
Yeah.
A little Mansonish, a little weird. Okay. So, um, when sorry, Stephen, I
No. Go ahead, Alan.
the as you uh, like you said, you tried out 200 different artists for this. Um, what kind of like? How did you know? What kind of instructions did you give them? Were you looking for? In, um, I'm kind of not saying this. What were you looking for gut feel? Did you have very strict criteria in mind? Were you looking for a collaborator or a kind of a commission? Just I'll tell you what to do and you give it to me, as opposed to I want to bounce story ideas off of you. And I guess we've heard Milo a couple times. How much are you still? Is there still things going on with Milo that you're co-creators, or have your paths diverged? What? Give us a little bit of background on that, because I
Sure.
know that any number of times when I bumped into you guys at Comic Con, I was like, okay, I hope I remember which one I'm talking to.
I
I
know.
know that's a terrible thing to say, but when you meet somebody once a year, it's like, do you have a name tag so that I don't embarrass myself? You know?
Yeah. No, we for a while we didn't look like each other, but then when his hair fell out too, we really confused the hell out of people, and it's awful too for us, because somebody will come up to me and then they're like picking up right with a conversation they had with Milo, and I'm like, oh, I'm not Milo. I don't know. And then they did, maybe they think we're aloof. So yeah, we said we should have uh, some sort of shirt that says, I'm not Milo, and his should say, I'm not Ted, um, which is what we did in one of our Kickstarter campaigns. But so yeah, let's see some of the questions, trying to tackle them in order. Um, with the artists, I was doing a search for both Bloom and Tap Dance Killer at the same time, because both at the, there was a point at which I thought, all right, I want to do both of these series, and instead of doing two separate art searches, we put the call out, we described both projects, and said, are you, if you're interested in one or not the other or both, let us know. So 200 people applied for both, combined, and mostly they would have taken either gig. And
Go ahead. What you were talking about the artist, Ted?
yeah, I'm going to just start that over so you have a clean edit. So, all right, to take those sort of in order, I think, let me do that again. You were asking about, so to take the questions in order, no, I got it. To take the questions sort of in order, with the artists, I decided I wanted to do both Bloom and Tap Dance Killer at the same time. Like I thought, let's not do two artist searches. So we put the call out. Both books were mentioned in it, described, and we got 200 submissions. And the way initially I would look at the work that they had done, and if if it was a style that I thought I could see on the book, I thought, all right, so they get into that category. And then we go through and see, how are their sequentials? Is this like a cover artist, or is this somebody that can actually tell a story? And the 200 keeps getting whittled down and whittled down. And then I would have them do a paid, not like a full price paid thing, but like an audition paid rate for an image of either character, depending on how I was feeling about them. So we would get these pinups of either Tap Dance Killer or Regina. And from that, I would be like, all right, now I'm going to give you a sample, whittled down again. Here's a sample page of action that I want you to lay out. And that will be also, a nominal fee that I paid to have, who knows, maybe 30 people do page layouts. And it was in that process where it really got narrowed down, and with Butch, I just immediately saw a Regina that I cared about. I just thought, this is, and Donnie did an amazing image of Regina, which is one of our variant covers. But I didn't feel like she was approachable. She's almost like a goddess or something. And but what he did with Tap Dance Killer was amazing. And so that he ended up getting that gig, and Butch got the Bloom. And with Milo, we're still kicking around Apama ideas. He's working on something now called the Heel, which is this wrestling book, completely unrelated to any of the stuff we've done in the past. The reason I did Tap Dance Killer solo is the musical I wrote, Nothing Like Vaudeville, years ago, is where Tap Dance Killer was pulled from. And same with the villain Sir Terror. And so I really had quite a lot. I mean, I've had those characters in my head for almost 25 years. And I had a story I really wanted to tell, and he understood that. It's similarly with Bloom. When I created Regina, that whole thing, I mentioned how autobiographical that was, and that whole story. So that one also felt very personal, and I did wanted to tell that one. But we're still close. We talk ideas quite a bit, movie ideas, or what we want to do with Apama. The problem right now with Apama, we have issue 12 done, and now that we understand how we're going to be doing these things with Kickstarters, I think we have a way of kind of releasing it. There is only so much with a small company like Hero Tomorrow that we can put out, just really for the sake of quality. So you kind of just, for me as the president of the company, I have to go with what my gut tells me I should do next. And right now, Apama's been put on the back burner while these other characters develop.
So, do you have any preview of any other characters that are going to do offshoots on their own?
I have another character that I'm excited about, and she will debut in a issue one of her own. It'll be in the same universe. I won't say anything about her, but yeah, there's another
Well,
one.
you have to let us know. We'll be
Oh, for
on.
sure.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
So sorry, please, Stephen.
no, no, no. You go ahead. I was just going to ask you what else you had.
No. So um, there's many things seem to be. So let's talk. The comic book world often seems to be create as many characters as you can to see what catches on, and then start the action figures and the merchandising, and maybe I'll get a movie deal and so forth. And that's been a very uh, attractive, if not addictive, thing for the, I don't know, other independents, the Todd McFarlanes of the world. I don't know that I've ever read a good Spawn story, but I know that there's a billion Spawn action figures out there. And so, do you are you being courted, or do you have any possibility of you wanting to do, like, I don't know, in your Kickstarters, you often have, here's the stretch goals, and it's, we'll have a cool T-shirt, a cool poster, various different editions, variant covers and stuff. Is is it a possibility that you're going to want to pursue that interesting world of merchandising? I've never been a person that, like, buys dolls, if you will, and yet I'm always amazed at how, when people talk about where they make their money, it's the Star Wars action figures, not the Star Wars movies. That there's just an incredible amount of like this. Exactly.
I had a, you
Oh
know,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
For
Yeah.
anyone who can't see this, I'm holding up an action figure that was done by a fan of Tap Dance Killer. This is a one-off, but I adore it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would love to do anything like that. In fact, I was at New York Comic Con a couple years ago when the president of FYE, the mall shops, came up and they looked at the banner of Tap Dance Killer and said, "What is this character about?" And they said, "We've walked this entire floor, and this is one of two images that we're very interested in." And they set up some in-store signings. They helped me develop the first Tap Dance Killer T-shirt. So what was interesting at the signings,
Wow.
though,
Okay.
people would buy the book. They didn't buy the shirt, so that didn't quite work out. We did like 4 store signings, but we came close with that one. And we're shopping around the intellectual properties to movie studios, and that's been ongoing. So yeah, we're definitely interested in, my pie in the sky with this would be to do a TV series with it all, so it's not just a Pama the movie or Tap Dance
Yes.
Killer, but like a series that. And what I really like about that is tonally, I think we have three very different tones, and you've got the friendly ice cream truck driver vibe. You've got the vaudevillains with their strange theatrical vibe, but then you've got the woods with Regina and her sort of enlightenment. So I think it could be a really wild thing if we could get it all in one.
I love that too. We've talked about that, how the world has changed with the streaming and everybody doing their own TV shows, that people now aren't saying, "Oh, I want to make a movie of my book. Oh, I want to make a TV show of my book."
Mhm.
That we can build the characters much more in those and explore many more territories, just like a series of comics rather than a one shot.
Mhm.
We've talked about that a lot, how uh, that's definitely what I think a lot of people would choose nowadays, is go with the TV show, some streaming service. And there's a ton of them to choose from that are doing great work.
Yes, yeah, the boys, WandaVision, I
One of
love
the
them all.
Oh yeah.
one of the things that I always hope for, as I said, I love having artist friends, is that they are going to have that lightning in a bottle thing where, if some part of life is, well, I was doing my art while I was also playing in the real world. I had to work this job, I had to, whatever else it might be.
And then
But
I was bit by a radioactive spider.
but if something happens where the MacArthur Genius Grant, you know what I mean? It's meant to be able to give people who are doing interesting work that might be world changing, like, to be free of the concerns of the world. So for those 5 years, they can work on stem cell research. They can work on solving the Pacific gyre with all of the plastic floating in it. And that's what I always hope for my artistic friends, is that they'll be able to, like, wow, this didn't sell 10,000 copies, it sold 100,000, and now I have money. And money buys freedom, and it buys me time, and it gives me the ability to do just what I want. And so I so much hope that for you and for other people that I think are doing wonderful work. But the world is still a constrained place, and even though there's opportunities, as Stephen said, in the digital world, it'd be just so great to be that you get a home run, and then that gives you, like I said, time and money and freedom to see what you really could do if it wasn't. I did this at 11 o'clock at night after my job was over, after my kids were put to bed, after my, you know what I mean? There's real world stuff that intrudes often into the artistic life. So
Yeah, no, you're right on the money with that. And this is really this year, because of this release plan with both Diamond and Kickstarter, is the closest I think I'll ever I've had to date to doing that. Comics are really the main push of what I'm going to be doing this year, much more than before. It was always film, and I was fitting in the comics as I could. This is quite the opposite, and it feels real nice, and I know it, there's something that is so interesting to me, that just what happens if you keep making stories. That's what has kind of just surprised the hell out of me, that had we not just done this Apama series, none of this other stuff would have sprung out of it. And what's springing out of it is what's got me so excited now.
Would you, since you did The Hero Tomorrow, would you consider doing your own movie based on one of the other characters?
Well, we were shopping around Bloom, as is, it's a pretty modest budget kind of movie. You got two people in the woods for 85% of it. And so we were trying to shop that around, and I would have been happy to direct it, if the right people would have come along to help with the production money, and putting that whole machine behind it. We couldn't get that together, so made a comic. But yeah, anytime I would do it.
Oh,
So, are you still a consumer as well as a producer? What other artists, writers, TV shows, whatever things have like that special spark that you make a point of? Oh, you got to catch this. This is
yeah.
really like nothing you've ever seen before. I love it. And any quick recommendations or?
Oh gosh, yeah. Let's see. On In the comic book world, I've really become disenchanted with Spider-Man again. This whole kindred thing is awful, and I came so close to writing Marvel a letter and saying, "You've just lost your way with this character." Um, However, I still get that. I'm not, what I get now more are Kickstarter from other creators. I'm so appreciative of the people who have supported mine, and when I see somebody else doing it, I'm excited much more for that than any of the mainstream stuff that's coming out right now. On the there's people I follow though, like Mike Allred. I just anything he does, I just love his style so much. He's got that robot something right now, X Robot, or it's a fun project, very Madman esque. uh, I'm totally into the MCU with my wife and daughter. We've watched all that stuff, and Jada and I, my daughter, we watch WandaVision every episode twice. And when we've gone back, and
Yeah.
I loving that series. I loved it from episode one. I think I knew that it was going to go to some weird places, and we had to sort of establish this sort of thing at the beginning that didn't bother me a bit. I know it turned off some people, but my God, it's great now. Um,
It
and
is. It's Alan. Are you caught up on that?
Yeah, I'm fully caught up. And in
Oh, good.
fact, one of the interesting things was I read all kinds of stuff that was people that really didn't understand any of the history of it, but getting very impatient about, oh, what's going on? It's like, wow, you're really not going to give like a half an hour of not instant gratification, that you're so impatient, so angry about that, that instead of just, hey, I'm going to stick with this and see what's going on, and the payoff, like by episode 4 or 5, was really worth of, you know, the craft of being able to capture each of the generations TV wise, going from black and white to color, going with the stereotypical characters. I have much admiration for whoever greenlit that and said, we know we're going to get this kind of bad press and still do exactly what you want and tell the story. And it's been very satisfying. So yes.
Yeah, I mean,
So, so what's your guys' thought? No, go ahead, Ted.
like a spoilery kind of thought.
Yeah, yeah, whatever.
Well, I do think it could be a Mephisto, and this whole thing with the he probably came to Wanda and said, I will offer, he found her in a dark place and said, you want Vision back? I can give you Vision back. You can live a perfect TV style life together. Some sort of, he probably mentioned TV in there in
Yeah.
some sort of, way that made it sound wonderful. But because it's a deal with the devil, they're jumping the decades, and that he's speeding up the deal. Like, you're going to live your whole life, but it's going to go by in a snap. And that would be
Right.
some part of that would make sense to me. I mean, I know there's other stuff going on, obviously. I'm a big Monica Rambeau fan, and one of the things I do at cons is, if I get to walk the floor before they open, and for years before everybody was doing it, I would go snag what I thought were going to be key issues, So I've got like 14 copies of Amazing Spider-Man Annual 16, and so I enjoy that element of it too. Did I guess right on this and whatever? But it got really hard once everybody had the apps, and all of a sudden the prices, you couldn't find the deals anymore. I'm getting off track. What
Right.
else? Yeah. What do you guys think about WandaVision though? What do you think's going on?
Well, I know I've heard the Mephisto arguments, and there's a lot of speculation as to who this Pietro is. But the fact that they're using the X-Men First Class Pietro, I love, because there's been that rumbling that they're going to bring the X-Men into it. Are they go connect the old shows or not and stuff? But I know the new Doctor Strange movie coming out is going to have Charles Xavier in it, along with Reed Richards. So the question is, which Charles is it going to be? Is it going to be an all new one, or is it one of the ones we've had? So I honestly, I don't care what the storyline is, because they've been doing great. And like I told Alan before, I just trust that they've done it right for the last 13 years. They'll keep doing it right. So I'm hoping that keeps true.
Actually, my take on it is that it's all Wanda.
Mm.
They established in comic books that she was an Omega level mutant. If they haven't used that term for her, it's very much. She said no more mutants, and the entire world, the entire universe shifted in her grief and in her madness. And so I think that a lot of this is her dealing with her grief, that she just can't live without her children, without the vision. I think that this is all her bringing into being her perfect situation, and that she doesn't have the ability to maintain focus and doesn't know exactly how she wants it to look. So maybe that's why it's kind of skittering along, and you're getting the exposures of, oh no, here's the blasted version of the vision and that kind of thing. But I think it's going to be a big kind of like Alias was in some ways of, when you're not well, you can't necessarily, you're not your own reliable narrator. You're not able to maintain your grip on reality, and when you have the ability to alter reality, this is a big cautionary tale, if you will. We'll
Obviously, being the first show after Endgame, and it's been like 2 years since a movie, this show is very much a Nexus show, that everything for the next 10 years is going to relate back to this show in some way. And I don't think a lot of people understand that fact. And there's just probably more things in it than we realize. It's going to be 5 to 10 years before we go back, oh my God, that was in WandaVision. It's going to change a lot.
Well, we could get
very
Reed
interesting.
Richards
Yeah.
tomorrow, because that's the big, who is Monica talking about with her astrophysicist? They're on their way to see him.
True. Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
And that could be where he comes in before Doctor Strange movie. That'd be nice. That'd be cool.
there's some very interesting things there because Reed also has been, through the course of comic book portrayals, where he wasn't just benevolent and brilliant. It started to be that he really was on the spectrum and kind of lost track of. There's a problem to be solved here, and I got to solve it no matter what. And if it involves canceling out other universes and dealing with all my other versions of Reed, you know what I mean? There's a whole bunch of Hickman books, and just they much expanded his role in the universe. That if you really were so smart that you really nobody can understand what's going on in your head, that's kind of pretty inhuman. And what would you do if you really were the arbiter of what's right? When they started talking about the Illuminatus and those six people deciding the way the whole world should be for everybody else, that was a very dangerous thing. You know what I mean? That you
Mhm.
really have that, if not megalomania, at least that. So so we'll see. And I always do this, and I do apologize for this. There's a whole different world, a whole different universe to the MCU, and I always bring
Yeah.
comic books into it because I've read everything and I really have a pretty good memory of all that kind of stuff. But they seem to like pick and pick ideas they want and discard other things. There's no canon. There's no. It has to be this way because that's how it was in the comic books. I am continually, wow, that's not the whole thing. That's
Was
not everybody. It was. Oh, that's not the best idea. They're wow. This I guess they had to fit 70 years worth of comic books into this one movie, and that's always then a really either a disappointment or a big startling thing for that's not the choice I would have made. I like
Mhm.
the way that Stan originally told it or
Well, I'm
whatever. But
glad they're doing that though, because it does give you the different universe to explore. The
in
only
retelling
movie
story, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only movie I've been super disappointed as far as the story was Civil War because I really felt like they crammed too much of it into one movie without enough of a lead in from the other movies. They've done so many little things over 3 movies that led to some other thing that Civil War felt a little rushed in the whole quote unquote war.
You know,
Yeah.
there's interesting about that one because Batman versus Superman was supposed to be on the exact same weekend, and Civil they said no, we're going to drop ours the same week, and then Batman and Superman backed off. But I wonder if there was a point at which they're like, we have to make sure we blow the doors off of Batman versus Superman, and then it got blown up. I enjoyed Civil War, but if you really look at what Zemo's plan was, it makes zero sense. Like for all of those things to kind of fall in line to I hope there's security footage of, the Winter Soldier killing Tony's parents somewhere. And I mean, it was just like, what?
Right. Right.
Well, and Batman versus Superman, we've talked about that at times. Did you see the extended version of that with the added footage?
I don't think I have.
That's not out yet, is it? The Zack Snyder version, or
Oh, it is. It's out.
oh no, no,
No,
yeah,
no, no. That's Justice League.
right, right. No, I don't know if I
The
did.
more
Is it better?
yeah.
The Oh God, yeah. It fits in some of the stuff that didn't make sense in that movie. And
Hmm.
I think it's just some stupid exec said, "Oh, we need to cut this by so many minutes, cut this out, cut this out." And the things they cut out were like, "Duh, why'd you do that?" And yeah, we're excited to see the Zack Snyder Justice League.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just not. I don't know. I'm not a DC guy. They just don't do it for me. Did
Well,
you watch Behind the Mask, that new
they
documentary?
haven't not yet.
Oh,
There was a neat point in it that I hadn't really ever thought about. That they said, you know, when Bruce Wayne's parents get killed, he he sort of becomes Batman in that moment, and everything about Bruce Wayne is just so that Batman can go on. Like Batman is the who he is. The character, the disguise is Bruce Wayne. That's very much
is Bruce
Superman.
Wayne.
Clark Kent is the disguise. Superman is the real character. Wonder Woman, the same thing. And with Marvel, it all became about the person behind the mask, which is why the name of that documentary. And it was put in such a succinct way, and with the examples they showed, I'm like, wow, this is probably why I never got into DC that much.
Very interesting. I've been going to the vaults. I have my comic book collection that I've been cataloging, and and as I'm going through the history of it, I had a kind of a similar revelation. I bought everything for a long time, but I always liked Marvel more than DC, and the ones that I liked from DC the most weren't Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, where they were kind of like Greek mythology, very removed from humanity. It was Doom Patrol, Challengers of the Unknown, Metamorpho, Metal Men, where they were Marvel style, if you will. The
Mm.
heroes were flawed. They made all kinds of mistakes. The motivations of of their patrons was not always the best. It was like they snuck some Marvel into DC in those secondary titles, and not even in the like Flash, Green Lantern, still pretty big stuff. All those other things that were an undercurrent in the DC universe is the stuff that I liked even when I was young because there was more to them. The continuing stories instead of individual things, and you try to put together the mosaic out of blips instead of it being no. There's a whole year run of how are they going to be able to escape. Anyway, it I've come to realize I've always liked that the humanization of them, and especially that it's not only about the heroes. In DC there were often villains that just I happen to put on a costume because I want to steal. I want to there was shallow motivation as compared to I don't know, Lex Luthor is going to be Superman's arch enemy because he lost his hair. It was only until much, much, much later that someone retconned into that maybe he's a xenophobe and he thinks because Superman is not of this earth that we're going to be, humanity first, earth first, etc. But that was always present in Marvel. That they always had, that the villains had as interesting motivations as the heroes.
Mm-hmm.
They were a tortured soul for revenge, or they whatever else it might be, and so you could understand a little bit more the motivation and the obsession of something if it really was, well, like Magneto, instead of just being a villain when they revealed that he was a camp survivor, a death camp survivor, it gives a whole different perspective on why he's so adamant about protecting others like him, and that he thinks the whole world is a bad place because in his growing up, it sure seemed that every authority figure, every person that had power abused it. So anyway, I love the fact where there's more depth, and whenever people used to talk to me about why are you reading comic books? Haven't you graduated from comic books? Haven't you grown up? It's like, no, you're just not reading the right ones.
Yeah,
There's great stuff being done, and I'll be happy to tell you. Give me a couple hours, and I'll be happy to tell you
yeah,
about how good comic books can be. So, so
Or
that
they
kind of
could
brings
just
us
listen to
around
our
to
podcast.
yeah.
it does bring around. That's I from the first time I read your stuff, I really thought that this is more that Marvel style or that ethos of there's something to the characters, that it isn't just four colors for let's have a fight, etc., that there was really I cared about Elia and what was going on in his life, and that Obama was just like another thing. It was not a distraction, it was primary to it, but it wasn't just Apama, and that he was spending time in Elia in between adventures. So I really love that you've captured that aspect of it, that Regina is not power mad. She's a prophet, and she's motivated by the certainty of her outlook as compared to I don't know. I don't even know that she's going to try to force it on everybody else. But the only way the world's going to get better is if everybody comes to believe as she does. And we see examples of that kind of madness in our world of certainty can really be a dangerous thing, depending on how much you're
Yeah,
willing to do in the name of that certainty.
yeah.
So, okay.
All
All
right.
right.
Well, I think well, we've been going quite a while today, Al.
Yes.
It's
Ted, we can't thank you enough. This is,
yes,
like I said, you're our first, and it really was when Stephen and I were speculating who would we like to talk to. It really was, well, he's brilliant. He's a hometown
Oh,
guy. We both love your work. I just, gush, 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 fanboy time. But I really can't thank you enough for taking the time to be with us and giving us some insight into you and your work and your world. It's really, really cool. So thank
yes.
you.
it was my pleasure, you guys. This was a blast, and I love the questions. A lot of questions I've never been asked before, and it's wonderful. So and thank you again for the support you've given. These projects in the past, and yeah, maybe one last shout out. If this is before, if you're hearing this before February 28th, just head over to Kickstarter, type in Bloom, and make sure you watch our crazy video. Our video's nuts.
That's
Yeah, we're
exactly.
we're we're definitely going to be pushing this. Hopefully, we'll get some more people that we know that may not have heard of you. Because again, back to publishing. That's the thing with publishing. You could be, putting ads out. You could be doing this, that, and the other thing, and there's still people that may not have ever heard of you that would love it. It's a constant thing. That's it. That's the downside of doing it independently. You have to worry about doing that.
We're
Yeah.
going to do our best to be a statistical blip, and
Yeah,
obviously so
hopefully.
good for you're investing some time with us today. So
Yeah, it
wonderful.
was
Thank you
great.
very
Good talking to you.
Same here, guys. Thanks so
Okay.
much.